provided a brief report to me this afternoon. We tested all 3 wells. They look like they're in pretty good condition, but we do need to drill additional 2 wells. They're in the process right now identifying the sites for those wells on adjacent property that the town owns. And the one problem is going to be that there's some wetlands dividing the 2 properties, and we're going to have to design an access road to get over to that property. Once that design and well location's been identified, we'll submit paperwork to Putnam County Department of Health. Once they give us the okay, we'll drill those 2 wells, do water testing, yield testing, and then once we, and quality testing, supply those reports to the Department of Health. At that time, they'll either give us the go-ahead to move forward or tell us anything that else we would need at that time, either more water in another well or something, or the quality or something. And then we would go into a design phase at that point. So we're about 12 to 14 months away before we can get to anything concrete about connecting.
Is there anyone here from the Hillcrest Water District? No, because I received a couple of emails from some people from Hillcrest. I think we probably all did. They have some concerns about merging the 2 districts.
Right.
Thanks, Bob. Can you speak to that?
Right.
They're concerned about obviously about the load on the placed on the Hillcrest infrastructure and the aquifer.
Right. Well, the aquifer, obviously we'd have to do that's one of the tests that we have to do for Department of Health to meet their satisfaction, is to do a 72-hour yield test. You pump the water for 72 hours, monitor the wells and also the surrounding area, any water tributaries or anything, to find out if there's any impact. And you need to pass that test before you can move forward. That's one of the things that we need to do. As far as the infrastructure and how the 2 individual districts will work, is I talked to Ron, the accounting, for the accountant for the town. We would continue to keep Peaceable and Hillcrest separate districts, connect the 2 districts together, and the infrastructure, the capital costs that's allocated or associated, I should say, to make this happen would be kept separate from the current debt that the Hillcrest district has, and that would be used to calculate and estimate the number or the dollar that we need to charge Peaceable Hill for usage of that connection and to supply water to that district. And then we would probably figure out we would figure out how much it costs us for the water, and that's what we would use to calculate out their rates for the quarter for Peaceable Hill. So basically, Hillcrest would be selling water to Peaceable, but we believe it'd be about 20% or 15% less than what they're paying now. So it's going to be significantly less.
That's less, even with the cost, obviously, of the capital project that we're talking about.
With all costs included.
Right.
So.
Any questions for Levon? Any questions from the public? Sue? Anyone? Okay, I just wanted to brief everyone about the status of the project. It's moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you, Levon.
All right, thanks, Levon. Item 7, status of budget deficiencies of the town hall account. This wasn't my item, so who placed this on the agenda?
Not I. Number 7, not I.
No? The status of budget deficiencies,
Yes.
that was it.
Happily, we passed the gravy train. That was number 6. So I think we discussed the gravy train enough. 7.
We rolled it in.
Status of the gravy train was rolled in. No pun intended. 7. Status of budget deficiencies of town hall account. What had happened was the last time we were here, we had a discussion about the fact that there was, I believe, Levon, you had mentioned that we needed a new air conditioner, or it was going to be $25,000. The supervisor queried about whether you had additional, you had to get additional bids or whatever it was. But what had happened was we were speaking about whether or not I thought that the town hall had a separate fund. And the supervisor seemed to indicate, and once again, he's the chief budget officer, so I thought it was a legitimate question. He seemed to indicate that he didn't think that there was anything in the fund, or just generally didn't know. So we asked that he would I asked him about it. He said that he didn't have a computer in his brain, and neither did I. But in any event, putting that aside, the bottom line is I asked that he meet with our town accountant, Ron Hund, and that Ron Hund would maybe fill in the chief budget officer as to the status of this fund, because it was somewhat alarming that the monies were gone. So that's why I had placed it on the, I had placed this on, actually that evening I had asked our town clerk who was here, Ruth Mazzy, to place it on the agenda. So I would just ask if the supervisor could speak to that.
Sure, Liz. With respect to the inquiry about the fund balance, there are two components. One is the shortfalls or over expenditure this year, as I mentioned, 20% in engineering, 20% in legal, and there were other instances where departments exceeded their budgets. That has to come out of the unexpended fund balance, the rainy day fund. The, let's see, general fund outside village is a deficit of $107,000 is projected in this fund. Let's see, highway fund townwide, a surplus of $146,000 is projected in this fund. Highway fund outside the village, a surplus of $9,000 is projected in this fund. And those are the, let's see, some of the cash flow projections. Now again, we're not at the end of the year. This is October and we have another couple months to go, so these numbers will flow. With respect to the off-budget items, and again, we were talking about the operating budget in the past, but with respect to municipal assets which do not appear in the operating budget, which has been the topic of discourse and of criticism by the State Comptroller's Office. With respect to these off-budget items, we have a new Town Hall Capital Fund, $220,000 positive. A new court facility capital, $3,000. Recreation upgrade capital, 64. It's close to zero. Beautification capital around town, 9,000. And the Louisa Zimmer Trust, which is an ancient trust that goes back to a benefactor of the town, and I'd like to thank her posthumously and her family for their bequest of $29,000. So those were not included in the budget because they are not operating capital, and they're never included in the budget. My concern is that to fund the, and to continue the analogy, to fund the gravy train, the 20%, that these funds may be tapped, and the short-term cash flow crunch, which the town is facing now with respect to the operating budget, may be sought to be met by Councilwoman Hudak, Councilman Gross, and Councilman Cullen by applying these capital assets. And I have already communicated with the Comptroller's Office to express my concern about that, and I'm looking for them to caution the town board not to consume capital in order to meet our operating costs. Instead, our expenditures are going to have to be reduced to become in line with the revenues.
I just think, Michael,
yes.
First of all, none of us ever knew these funds existed. You were the one that inquired to the town accountant about these funds, and he forwarded the email to the board. So nobody ever, and then for you to send a letter, an email to the controller saying that we're thinking of using these funds was absurd because we never even knew they were there. I mean, that was really insulting to us that you would accuse us of taking these funds when you were the one that did the inquiry about it. I never heard of the Zimmer Trust before.
Bob, I understand your point, and obviously no insult was meant with respect to, we're talking about, and folks, I face this every day, personal attacks on me, and all I'm doing is shining a spotlight on how your money is being spent. And there are voices that are desperate to shift that spotlight away from how your money's being spent, shift it off of the gravy train and shift it anywhere else. And that's wrong, that's a bad call.
I think, Mr. Supervisor, what's happening, a lot of the problem tends to be turning into a personal issue. These budgets, when you prepare a budget, millions of dollars, they're very complicated. How much money goes here? How much money is received in the town? We don't get paid daily like a regular business. I think we get paid twice a year from tax proceeds and things like that. We get paid through the MTA, different other surpluses and things like that. I think the bottom line of what the residents want to hear is, what is the tax increase going to be this year? And nobody wants to hear a tax increase. Basically, our job here is not to have a tax increase, especially a double-digit tax increase. So what is happening now is if we leave the budget at 2010 levels going into 2011, we're looking at a 46% tax increase. I don't think anyone can stomach something like that. So the bottom line for the folks and everyone else dealing with the budget is, what are we going to end up paying? And our job is to try our best to make sure you don't pay any more than you have to. All right? So at this point, we're looking for a 0% budget increase, and that's what your budget has been. And granted, there are a number of things that have been cut from the budget, and services and things like that. But we have to maintain the quality of life and the operations of the town through that budget. And everybody knows tax proceeds have come down this year, all right? The market is not doing well. We have spoken about this for 2 or 3 years going in. It's now hit this town. So if you want to, complain about the chief budget officer and how much does the chief budget officer make and what has the chief budget officer been doing, the community wants to hear so much. The community wants to know, what do we end up paying at the end of the day, okay? And I give the same analogy over and over each week. You drive up Route 22, and how much should you be spending for a gallon of gasoline, all right? And it's $2.98. You'll go past that, and you'll stop at the gas station for $2.97 to save yourself a penny, all right? And that's what people want to do around here, save a penny. Okay, so let's not make this a personal issue. That's what we can do to save. Let me finish, please. Let's see what we can do for this community the best way forward. Enough of the personal attacks.
Yeah.
This town board needs to get on track, see what it is to save money. The state controller has come in here, has numerous deficiencies. The fund balance is down, and we're over here bickering and battling over, who said what and what time did Dwight Yee send out his report. You know what? The bottom line is, I do not want to see a tax increase in this community. I really don't. However, hard times have hit us.
I have to do this because I love hearing all the time about the personal attacks. You notice how the supervisor is always personally attacked. Councilmember Yee is personally attacked. You want to hear about a personal attack? I think a lot of you know the YouTube video, the infamous, I want to make a motion, I make a motion in the other video. Very soon after that video was posted on YouTube, I don't know how many people of you know that there are comments to YouTube. And you talk about personal attacks, how about this one from Councilmember Yee? This is a good one. You ready? Fighting corruption in your town in Southeast. This was 19 hours, like right away. And this is what Councilmember Yee said. Talk about attacks. As we prepared to enter into an executive session to discuss the New York State Comptroller's report, the worried behavior of the 3 council persons, Roger Gross, Robert Cullen, and Elizabeth Hudak, is clear, as they squirm and struggled to exit the meeting like cockroaches, scattering as the lights are turned on. The New York State Comptroller's report exposed numerous deficiencies by their friends, the town attorney Willis Stevens and the town clerk Ruth Mazzei. So you know something? I was characterized as a cockroach. Can you imagine? And they're talking about personal attacks?
Exactly.
What do you think about that as a personal attack? A cockroach. And I ask you all to go on YouTube so you can see what a real personal attack is, because what we're doing is simply questioning the chief budget officer's performance that he's paid $20,000 a year for, just so that you're clear, and just so that,
I voted against.
for the budgets that he voted, and thank
right.
God, let me tell you, because if you had his budgets, we'd be deeper into the hole. Let me tell you something.
would
This
have
all
reduced
started out.
spending.
This, I don't interrupt him. Status of budget deficiencies of town hall account. You know what's really interesting? He didn't even know, because last week he said there was no money in that town hall budget account. Do you understand that? And
Liz,
now,
what I
all
said
of a
was-
sudden,
train
no.
left the station.
You can all
That's
look.
right. But
He said
Liz-
last week,
train
and
left
that's
the
why
station.
I said that I wanted him to go speak to the town accountant, because what he said was there was nothing in it. And now
What I
all of a
said, Liz,
sudden,
was
I know, he always says
You
something.
had
Remember
loaded
last week?
the gravy train with,
No,
now we
do
see
you
what the
remember-
gravy train is.
Now we see what the gravy train is.